Well, basically, we were founded 39 years ago to investigate and expose abuses in the mental health industry, specifically psychiatry, psychology. And this is our purpose. This is our sole purpose. We're tunnel visioned, if you wish, into this particular area because that's what we do.
How long ago? How long?
39 years.
39 years.
Yes, ma'am.
What got you involved in it 39 years ago?
I didn't get involved 39 years ago. I got involved about 17 years ago.
Okay, because you don't look that old.
Okay. Thank you very much. I got started because I wanted to do some work in the entertainment industry, and I found out that there was a need for a television show in Tampa, Florida, and that's where I got involved. So I started doing a show, much as you are, in Florida, a live show on Friday night on cable television, where I interviewed guests, survivors and abused people, doctors, lawyers, and that's how I got started with this. And it was after I got into that I realized that there really was a problem. I didn't understand it totally. And I then realized that when my grandfather died in a mental hospital in North Carolina many years before that, that it really was an abuse. And I understand now how much so. Can you just share that abuse just a little, not too much? Well, if it's too personal, we won't go there. No, it's not. There's not a problem there. He was an elderly gentleman. He was up in his 80s, and today it would be called Alzheimer's. Back then it was called senility. Oh, okay. And his daughters, my mom and my aunt, decided that that was the best place to put him. He was not a danger to anyone, including himself. And he and his wife moved back and forth between the two girls' homes. Would stay a month with us and a month with my aunt. And we kids loved it. But for some reason, Mom and the aunt decided to put him in Dorothea Dix Hospital. And I think he lasted about 2 months. What happened? How did they abuse him? Did they just not take care of him? Or one of the things that the psychiatrist said, and this man had worn long johns 12 months a year. Back in eastern North Carolina. He wore them all the time, summer, winter. And the psychiatrist told him he could not wear long johns. He had to wear their regulation. Their garments, He caught pneumonia, and that's what killed him. And it's an abuse. I mean, it's a human rights abuse, you see. They didn't allow him to be himself. I see. And that led to his death. So I do have that knowledge. And I have another incident that occurred. My wife's best friend in high school had a son. His name is Kip Kinkle. Kip Kinkle in Portland, Oregon, was the one who, back about 10 years ago, killed his mom, my wife's best friend, and his dad, spent the night in the home with the bodies, and then went to school the next day and shot up about 22 people. So that is something that people don't realize. All of those things occur because of psychiatric drugs. He was on Prozac, and that was a follow-up of Ritalin. So these are just incidents and I love your title, because most people don't realize this is a money game. The mental health industry, that means it's money. It's not help. In fact, we have at the... It's more of abuse. I mean, but because of you three, change can come about. Each one help one, and that one to help another, and hopefully we can eradicate some of these things that are happening. Because I'm sure there's tons of cases out there where I'm sure our viewers can relate to, and when you start hearing other people talk about things, then you start realizing that was abuse, you know what I mean? So I'm sure we all have situations in our family or friends that we've heard where there's been abuse in nursing homes, etc., etc. All right, I'm just going to move on to Jeff.
Pardon me, I have a cough, so pardon me if I cough during this. I can't get rid of the congestion. It's got nothing to do with the topic of the show, but I can.
Okay, maybe it's just a reaction, you know. I should have brought you a cup of water.
I'm going crazy.
Okay. Tell me how you got involved in the mental health industry. What brought you into it?
I just heard stuff, really, and I was never properly trained as a lawyer. I took a correspondence course. Nobody would hire a guy in his 40s. It's true. Nobody would hire. It's true. Nobody would hire a middle-aged guy in his 40s from a correspondence course. And I started dabbling in it, and I heard about stories, things that were going on in the mental health system, and more, and I found the CCHR, and I started talking to them, and sometimes they would contact me to try to get people out of hospitals, these psych hospitals. So thank you very much. Somebody brought me one. Okay, these psych hospitals, and it snowballed some from there. I have not done nearly as much as Jeff has done, but in looking over the codes, it appears that doing some investigation, it appeared that this was a money-making venture many times by psychiatrists ripping off Medicare and Medi-Cal. What the Medicare people and Medi-Cal people don't understand is that the profit motive, when somebody is held against their will, used as an involuntary customer, as it were, Medicare and Medi-Cal are paying for abuse. They don't mean to.
Right.
And you know, sometimes they say, have you heard about abuse in Medicare? You know, contact this number. So I mean, I've contacted Medicare and Medi-Cal, and they really don't give a darn. I know they could.
Well, they just take the information. You don't hear from them.
They don't care.
It's kind of that.
And you know, Medicare is you know, is in a little trouble. You hear that they don't have enough money and that sort of thing. You wonder what happens with the money. And part of it, Medicare is probably by now it's been ripped off like billions or so. It was, you know,
whole billions.
Now, they've been ripped off by
doctors, because what the state legislatures, particularly, at least I know California, I'm more familiar with California, what the state legislatures never understood is the financial incentive to lock people up for money, follow the money. And this is not some minor little thing. I eventually ended up representing somebody who's sitting next to me, in fact, who Medicare was ripped off about 50 grand by the hospital. And you can't, and you try to get through to people in government, and it just doesn't click. They can talk about how they're against fraud, but it's really follow the money. I've heard of, I remember one case some years ago, they were holding some like teenager or something. They were billing, I think it was probably Medi-Cal. It wasn't
holding him in a
psych facility. It was in the South Bay area, and they were making about $1,500 a day. Then I wrote a letter. You know, I think I helped get them out, whatever happened back then. But they're ripping off the system, $1,500 a day, and saying this guy needs help, and the financial incentive to hold people is right there, and the doctors who work for this hospital, for these hospitals, can make money just holding people, and it's follow the money. I mean, and it doesn't cost them $1,500, let's face it, to hold somebody. I mean, they've already got the bed, they already got the building, so it's just gravy. They have to pay for some food, so they would make, you know, it's almost all profit. And you cannot get through to politicians largely. Politicians, I have found, largely have two things in common on this stuff. Number one, by and large, they don't care. And number two, if you were to ask them, they will deny number one. They will act like they care. This would not be going on without politicians. The section in California, 5150 of the Welfare and Institutions Code allows people to be held under certain circumstances. The problem is, when the state legislature put that law in effect, which was an improvement, it's the LPS was an improvement over a previous law, they didn't put in the proper safeguards. They just assumed that, well, the psychiatrists will do the right thing. There are some safeguards, but they did not take into account the profit motive, the profit incentive. And as a result, a lot of psychiatrists have taken the ball and run with it. When you pay these people, or you pay the facility $1,000 or $2,000 a day, whatever, it's a lot of incentive to rip off the system, and that's what's going on. When a case I handled, the Shirley's case, the opposing counsel their argument was that psychiatrists are required essentially to follow the rules or something. And I said something in my response like, that's like me holding up the penal code saying people are required to not rob banks. I know they're required to, but they don't follow the rules.
And they don't.
They don't.
That's a valid accusation.
I've never seen, I don't know of any other profession that gets away with this.
But we have a history where, I remember years ago, a lot of times people who were different, let's say senility or senile, you know, they would kind of push them aside. But I just want to come a little bit more current. I was reading in the LA Times maybe a couple months ago, in the downtown area, they were just taking all these mental patients and just dropping them in that area down there. It'd take them from the hospital and just dropping them down there until they